Welcome to the Courage for Freedom podcast. Today we are here with an absolute rock star heavyweight title, a podcast panel. So we'll just, it's left to right for me, but we've got Kelly Talon Franklin, who's a wonderful face of this organization. We've got Mayor Joe Preston of St. Thomas and the Deputy House Leader of the Opposition, Karen Vecchio, here today. So I guess, how is everyone doing? How are we feeling today?
Could this be better? I don't think so. Spending time with Karen and Kelly is what I live for.
You know, it's funny. I used to spend a lot of Saturdays with Joe, so I should be used to Saturdays with Joe. It's like Tuesdays with Maury, but this is great. And I mean, I love working with this group in our community because those are the types of friendships that we have. So I'm really excited.
That's awesome. Saturdays with Joe sounds like a show that I think I would really enjoy watching. Really about that, but yeah. So I guess the interesting question here is to start us off is how did you both of you become involved with the work that Kelly is doing? Maybe Mayor Joe, you want to start that question off?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it wasn't easy. It was like I thought the introduction in the beginning. I was the member of Parliament. Kelly would apply for her group's funding for Canada Summer Jobs, and I would go, Karen, what is this group? Who are these people?
Yeah.
Karen was smart enough to say, go talk to them and you'll know them, right? So a few quick visits out to the farm to begin with to meet Kelly and a flurry of activity every time I went. And my most hated horse, King, King was mean to me the first day I visited the farm, but I liked Kelly, so I went back. And really, just to find out the great work she was doing at the time was enough for me as the member of Parliament that day to say, look, we need to support this. And not only that, how else can we help locally, right? Because sometimes you can arrange for governments to assist, but not many things pique your interest enough with the limited amount of time you have spare to say, but I also want to be involved. And I immediately said that too. So we moved on from there. I mean, Kelly, we did so many amazing things together, like at Budweiser Gardens and in person and at the farm. And I was so proud to give Kelly the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal one day too. Yeah. So we've done formal ceremonies too, but look at we're far more friends than we are associates. And sometimes we have to get through 2 or 3 hours of friendship talk before we get to all of the great things that we can help each other with. So I'll stop at that and say I love her.
Joe was the first person to ever serve us through a drive-through window as we came through with our horse and buggy at Wendy.
Yeah.
And
that's fantastic.
Fundraise. And Karen, multiple times, has been announcing our horses coming down the roadway for the Santa Claus parade. And we had a horse that was the first one that would go over the drawbridge, over the water. And so we used to get booked into Port Stanley all the time for Canada Day. So both Karen and Joe introduced us to a lot of avenues in the community that gave us the capacity to fall in love even more with our community and want to serve. Joe has a saying that volunteering is the price you pay to be a citizen in community or in your community. And I think, I don't know, Joe, I think you branded that on us.
Well, and if I want to open the dictionary and look that saying up, I see you. Because
oh my God.
It just
is. Do you have Kleenex? Here.
It might be.
Welcome to the soap opera. Oh, you guys set the bar high.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that, and carrying on with where Joe went, I'm just taking over, Jason. This is what you'll find out about me. You think you may be the host, but some of us talk. You're dealing with 3 people that are all very talkative. So best wishes to you as we're going through today. But absolutely, my introduction through Kelly was with the office of Joe Preston when he was the member of Parliament, and seeing Funny Farm and what the heck is Funny Farm. And so when we're doing Canada Summer Jobs, one of the most important things is where's the money going to? So Joe has really taught me about financial responsibility and accountability. You know where every dollar goes. So we actually, I remember going out for the first time with Joe to see Funny Farm, and then watching as Kelly has gone with Funny Farm, Farmtown Canada, Courage for Freedom, all of these great things. And it's been really great because in my role in Parliament, I get to meet people from all across the country. And I can tell you, you just don't meet a Kelly Franklin every day, especially in this type of work. You get to meet lots of people that have ideas, but she is one heck of a person that when there's an idea, you then put it into action. And that's why when you might expect Kelly to be at something on a Saturday morning and she'll say, well, actually, I'm 6 hours away because I got a call in the middle of the night. This is what you know about Kelly Franklin. And that's what I think is just extraordinary.
Well, and I think one of the first interviews that Kelly and I did together, she was on the road to doing the work that Courage for Freedom does to go pick someone up from a situation that they said they needed help in. So that's absolutely something that I'm sure,
I agree.
Will have found out about Kelly.
And you know what? To the credit of my friends on call today, they stuck with us through multiple transitions because it was Funny Farm to Farmtown to what's now Courage for Freedom, because we kept re-identifying gaps in community and we wanted to fill them. But part of that journey too, really, that I think it's our final transition, we've landed on work that I can't move off of because it's part of my story. Because it was in 2013 that I was actually able to reconcile some of my past and be honest about it, and come forward that I am a human trafficking survivor from when dinosaurs roamed the earth, but I wanted to prevent it from happening to young girls today, which are over, 25 and unders is where it's happening. With over 68% of our population. And Stats Can just released their recent report from 2019 that in 2019 we saw a 43% increase in human trafficking cases, and now they don't even know what we're going to find from the reports in 2020. So the fact that these guys allowed me publicly to transition in a way, because they knew we were always wanting to mentor other people, engage the community. And they know I put more water in the soup. So any money that did come from Canada Summer Jobs, we stretched it. And it's funny, we still have so many people that are in our social media circles that are now 25 and 30 that started out as kids, first volunteering and then working and getting a summer job with us and learning things that at the time they hated. Nobody wanted to shovel poop in the barn, but everybody learned how to teach it to somebody else. And now they're so and as adults, they're so grateful for the work ethic they developed. And it's to the credit of parliamentarians and staff in politics that understand that connection. And Karen, I have pictures of you, Joe, and I, and a bunch of kids walking down that driveway, and you guys listening to them. And that's what inspired us in 2013 when we flipped the dial to do everything 100 miles an hour in anti-human trafficking of kids, that I was able to figure out with my husband, because that's a hard thing, how to come out with my story, but point it back to what's happening today. And that friendship with you guys gave me some, I'm sitting here with letters from Karen, from the police chief, from Joe, recommendations to just help us keep the work going. And I can tell you that some days that's what keeps us going. Okay, we didn't get 10 minutes in and I'm done.
If I can just jump in there too, there were so many, with Kelly and the transition, there were so many aha moments. The first time was, hey, look at all the neat work we're doing with youth. But also then to start talking and framing it as a human trafficking solution and moving forward now to courage and what's now happening there has been like moving from kindergarten to post-secondary education on human trafficking. And as a member of parliament, that is the level of educational need that we needed, or as the mayor of St. Thomas, there's so many oh yeah moments. Okay, everybody has something they really want you to know about. But with Kelly, she didn't only want you to know about it. She wanted you to know how it affected her and a number of girls in her care. I'll tell you, there's no solidifying the knowledge like hearing it personally and saying, yeah, okay, I understand. There's lots of other great stuff out there we could be working on, and many of us were working on a number of things. But that warm spot in our heart was because we knew, right? I went to Parliament not knowing the first thing about human trafficking. I had heard it, I'd seen movies, that type of thing, and you go, yeah, okay, that's happening somewhere else. Well, what Kelly taught me is it's happening in my community. And the best way to address it is as loud and as clearly as you can in any format you are. So as a parliamentarian of the day, it was important to help my colleagues get the same knowledge, right? And I was thankful, I'm thankful that I served with a couple of other people that understood the scourge of human trafficking also. And we worked hard in Parliament to bring that to the attention of the 308 men and women that also served. But it wouldn't have come to my thoughts without Kelly teaching me it on the ground. And I know that, Karen likely saw exactly the same thing. And so then, because Kelly will always next say, okay, what can I do for you next? It became a habit that we could ask the same question. Okay, so what's next? What's the next level we want to get to? There was heartbreaking moments where we weren't able to do enough. And there was glorious moments where a light bulb finally came on with someone who didn't understand the severity, and talking to police forces or ministers from the provincial government, ministers from the federal government about how serious this is. No, it doesn't just happen somewhere else. It's happening in your hometown too. Help understand it. Kelly made it very, very clear that was our work.
We were really grateful to also have an MPP at the time that was Minister of Transportation, Jeff Urich. Like, shout out to Jeff, who opened the office in his ears, along with Karen. You guys are you're the bookends. I can meet one and two of you right beside each other. And your doors were always open to hear what's next, what's happening, what are you hearing? Since 2013, we've had 350 girls that we've been directly responsible to care for them, their communities, their families. And no matter how much we think there's resources out there, there's always roadblocks. So kudos to you guys, to Jeff for opening this up as a corridor. We were the first province to talk about a corridor, because Jeff helped us with this, with Karen, with Joe, and we knocked it out of the park in Project En Route. Then we saw Ontario government come up with the strongest strategy in Canada. The strongest anti-human trafficking strategy in Canada came out of our little community, Ontarians, and Elgin-Middlesex-London, St. Thomas. And then we were able to start pushing for 308 million, for 48 million for the kids programs, for 35 million for the youth. So it's not just caring, it's coalition building and putting it back to each community and letting them have their flavor and their community culture. Peel, we worked with Peel. They came up with one of the most incredible strategies and housing strategies that this afternoon I'm traveling to speak with a church, House of
Why don't I believe that?
I know, and Hiatus House to coordinate a 3 or 4 bedroom safe house for Windsor, but we were lending them what somebody else learned. And that's
Yeah.
what you guys taught me. And then Karen took it a step further. And Karen, you need to just speak about some of the report work you've done and the survivors that you've had the privilege to listen to. And I know it changed your life. And Karen works more tirelessly than me. I think she has better vitamins.
I don't know about that, but I'll kind of start off with, once Joe left the House of Commons and I was honored to take on that role, I was given a role of Shadow Minister for Families, Children and Social Development, where we started looking at housing. So, when we talk about, people love to talk about intersectionality and how things come together. And so the first thing I did was I was the Shadow Minister for looking at housing and looking at what's available to people and people in need and poverty and struggling with addictions. So that was probably like one of my first introductions to the real world, not just Elgin-Middlesex-London, but seeing what was happening across this country. And I can share with you that from working with Kelly, having these conversations, having her being so real has given me, honestly, I don't mean to sound cold or anything like that, but I've sat down with people who were prostitutes in downtown Vancouver. I've sat down with women who will share with me about what they have had to do to get through life. Many of them being dropped into this type of work because of being human, or because of sexual exploitation and trafficking. And so, you watch this progression. And so when I took on, following that, after doing all the poverty, I got the role as Chair for Status of Women, as well as Shadow Minister for Status of Women. Yep. And I can tell you it has been life-changing, because I have those intimate conversations where you truly feel like this, you feel like this is your daughter. This is a person that you really need to look at. And every time we're looking at this legislation or things to do with families and women and children, it's really, really simple to look in my own backyard and across the streets and in our own community on what we need to do better. And this is why I sit there and I think if everybody could take Elgin-Middlesex-London and replicate it across the country, we might be pretty darn lucky, because it's where everybody's working together at all levels of government. And so last year, I know, Kelly, one thing I've really noticed is there's so many silos. Joe taught me all about silos. Cut down those silos. We're not working in different silos. And everybody has their own thing and what they do. And I'm about breaking down those silos and collaborating. Let's talk, when we're talking about drug addictions, when we're talking about housing, when you're talking about poverty, you also have to talk about sexual exploitation and human trafficking and all of those types of things, and criminal and the justice system. They all are together. And when one thing's off balance, it throws everything else off balance. So I really, Kelly, that personal support that she has given me to do the best job that I could ever do has probably been the best thing, where I've sat down and cried with women who will tell me that at the age of 11, that their uncle was the first one who has done horrific things to them. And then it was their step parents, or it was their foster parents or a parent who had then put them on the streets. Kelly providing me that experience with her has made me open. And I can tell you, she's opened me up, which sometimes it means if you're really open, you bleed a lot. And so a lot of blood, sweat, and tears when you look at this kind of stuff, because this is happening. And people can say it's not happening, but it happens in our own backyards and it happens in our communities, and we need to do something about it. So I'm very passionate about this as well.
I found my people, Jason.
If I can add a sideline to what Karen just said, you remember what I said? I just didn't even know about it. The knowledge helped me be better at it. Well, one of the most significant things Kelly does is help share that with other people who can do something about it. Yeah. I can take, for example, our police chief in St. Thomas, our deputy police chief, and the members of the police force likely had a similar thought process to what I had. Oh yeah, human trafficking? Yeah, that's Toronto. That's somewhere else. That's not St. Thomas, right? Well, with the knowledge that Kelly's been able to help share, I have a working police force that is intimate in the knowledge of what is happening even in its own community. It makes it a better place, not a worse place. It's admitting that that's who we are now as a pretty mid-sized city in Ontario that we have some warts and we need to look after them too. But we admit they're there, and with Kelly's help, have the knowledge of what next steps might be. It's incredible how often that type of conversation on human trafficking takes place with our police services. I don't know if that's everywhere, but I know Kelly has knocked on every door at every police station in the world, it seems, to also share the knowledge. And those that don't have it just aren't listening.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. You know, it's absolutely, that thing is, we find out about it, but you've knocked on those doors and made us much more aware. And that has such a big collaboration. It's all about collaboration and learning. And that is what Farmtown Canada and Courage for Freedom has done. It's given us that experience so that now we know we had a little pinhole of what it looked like. And then now we know that there's something much, much bigger than that. And Jason, I know Kelly was asking about a report, because in the status of women, we really looked at things when it came to the needs for women, violence against women. You know, I talk about one of the first reports I did as a parliamentarian. Actually, it was the second report, because I think GBA Plus was first. We talked about violence of young women and girls. And it was incredible, the hearing from parents who had lost their children due to rapes, due to extraordinary violence. And of course, the stories of Rehtaeh Parsons and things like that. It may not be human trafficking per se, but it's what it does to an individual and the impact to individuals and the rights of individuals when it comes to being sexual beings. You know, that personal identity, and that this is my body, this is who I am, you don't have any right to touch it. These types of things have become very, very important to me as well. And the one thing I noticed when we're doing this is there are so many needs out there. There, a woman who is leaving a violent home and taking her children, they need something that's much different than what a survivor of human trafficking and sexual exploitation needs. You know, there is so much mental health and rehabilitation that needs to be there. And I think we have, how do we make, my focus is, how do we make that person whole again? How do we provide them the support and the encouragement to know that life will be better and that there is a community that is here to support you? And I think what Kelly has done, it's really broken down that stigma of being a victim. People will say, I'm not proud of my past. I don't think anyone should be saying, I'm not proud of my past. Look at what you've learned from your past and how you're now helping others. And that is what I think. We've all made mistakes. We've all had something happen. And I look at Kelly and I think she didn't have a choice. She didn't make a mistake. She didn't have a choice. And this is what you see in human trafficking. But that feeling that you are dirty, all of those, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Kelly, but those feelings that you're
speak the truth.
Yeah.
I trust, you know what?
Yeah,
I trust you amplify voices.
Yeah.
You don't shame anybody.
Yeah, I think of all the pain and suffering that these young women and girls have gone through, and not forget boys. There are boys in this mix as well, but it's a majority of young women and girls. I think we have to look at that and how do we give that person a path forward? And that is my whole life right now. How does a person have a path forward? Because I'm really about equality, equal opportunity. And these people who have trafficked, they have violated these young women and girls and taken away their hope. Our job is to give them hope again.
You know, yesterday, well, actually this morning, I took off into a city and didn't even know if I'd get back for the podcast in time. So I have some OPP friends that I can wave at occasionally. That's also why I don't have a fishy sticker on the bumper of my car.
Right.
But taking off and just being every single day, you know, we've grown organizationally that we have an international voice. I chair Business and Professional Women Canada in Ontario, and we are learning. What we've learned is that if we give parliamentarians and municipal leaders and all of those in government real information, and if we're not pitching like we're in a silo, but acting like whatever, and here it is, Karen, this is what I got. This is tears in your office. But being on the farm, I understand how you can only look after your silo because that's all the resources you have. What you have to do is take whatever you learn and whatever you're finding impact or research or data in your silo, the reason there's silos is to create a farm co-op, a collective, throw it all in and forget about what's important for you. When we get to the place where it's not just about funding an agency or an NGO, or this is the flavor of the week and it's now entertainment value, and you both know what I'm talking about, when instead it's about what survivors are asking for and what their needs are based on what we've seen that's had success. So for me, I am really excited because I'm seeing organizations that have always led this, that have kind of tokenized survivors to come in and help write the grant, and they get it for 5 years, and after year 1, they're not there anymore. Those responsible in government and in cabinets and organizationally for funding have now caught this. And they're like, okay, it's not enough to be survivor centric, survivor influence. Like, let's forget the media phrases. What do we really need? It needs to be survivor led in a way that at every level that there's interaction. It's same with Indigenous communities, ethnic communities, LGBTQ plus communities. We, Karen said it, we are underreported when this happens to the trans and LGBTQ plus communities, when this issue, because the level of shame is higher, but also the level of shaming or victimizing somebody that's trans to say, well, of course you're trans, of course this would happen to you. Of course you're Black. I have a friend on the HT unit in Toronto named Michelle Powell, who grew up at Driftwood and Jane and Finch. I have a history there I'm not going to share about, but her growing up there and now saying as a cop, I see what happens to Black girls once they disclose their trafficking and the difference in how they're treated. Why are over 50% of all cases of human trafficking Indigenous when they make up 4%? But I don't want to blame a demographic and stigmatize that demographic. So I try really hard when I present to say, it's because we failed them supporting to prevent this by assisting their communities to prevent it themselves. So that's why I go up to Manitoulin Island and I talk to Indigenous constables and talk to the police at Rama and talk to elders and leaders through, and now we have a Canadian task force that's just volunteers, and we're talking to everybody. So now, I said I was traveling this morning and didn't almost make it back. Well, I'm trying to talk to a family in Arabic and I don't speak Arabic. So how do we get the information into them to allow them to speak to their own communities? I don't want to do this. I want to give them the tools. And I don't want to have to try to explain to social workers working in the trans community that the reason the young person is still being trafficked is because a pimp is withholding transitional medication. Like there's just always more, more.
Yeah.
But the first thing we need to do, there needs to be a safe house in every community. It's going to be expensive and it can't be in the shelter. That's what's working now. But if you look at the record of how well it works, it disrupts an older mom there with a teenage daughter to put a 16-year-old that's been trafficked together and try to program that. You're not meeting either need. And, friends that we have in community will allude to this. They still are picking up the slack. So I would love to see a safe house with a model like Peel in Elgin-Middlesex-London, if that's what's ahead for our community. I wouldn't be running it. I would help sit and welcome it and help do the boots on the ground work. But we need one in Windsor, and they will be able to field the larger communities, because I'm meeting people in communities of 350 people that have a daughter that's been trafficked. And God bless us all for working on mental health, where we can now say things more openly. And Joe, you talk about this. Karen, you talk about mental health. You know, we've moved the dial. So now we say goat yoga, woohoo. And with addiction issues, a lot of people now are able to say 5 years clean, 2 years clean. We are not yet on that page where we are seeing families and victims go, 8 weeks since my daughter was bought or sold. Woohoo. We're not there. And that's why you guys are needed, and why I believe our community is going to cut a hole in the ice in some areas for this issue. I'm depending on it, especially with the news that's just out in Mayor Joe's city with a huge case. So, okay, I'll be quiet now.
And I think, you know, Kelly, you're absolutely right on that. It's there needs to be places, because as you indicated, the supports and the services that are needed for women and girls who are being trafficked are very, very different. The amount of psychological abuse, I can't even imagine what these girls have gone through. They've been taken by somebody who, in many cases, they may have trusted at the beginning. They may have been a friend. And I think those are the things are, what does that friend look like? And, you know, that trust that they build. When you talk about the pimps, I've heard them, Romeos, everybody's got great words for them. But the fact is that trust, that bond, and the fact that that young girl who's been trafficked and pimped out by this person, you know, you have to think about the abuse that's happening and all of these things. It's just, there's so much to this onion. And I think the thing is, we have to recognize that there's layers and layers of layers that will have to be dealt with. So a 1 week rehab will not be enough. This person will need supports for probably the rest of his or her life, truly, for the rest of his or her life.
I have ongoing PTSD. It will be with me forever. The best thing that I could teach a young person and their family is how to self-direct their care. I can't empower them. They have to just be given tools to self-direct their own care and make their decisions, so that for a lifetime, they will navigate for themselves and make good decisions. And along the road, like, how many times as a teenager have I made a bad decision? So we need to remember, especially with a young, Joe put up his hand. Okay, we need another podcast, Jason.
That's on the trials and tribulations of Joe Preston under the.
Let's just use Saturday show. Let's call my FM up right away.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that we're going to see is that I am frustrated pouring my whole life, my family's life, all our resources, finances, and just basically almost terrorizing every one of my friends that they need to voice in this issue, is because the hole in the bucket is seemingly getting bigger. So one of the things that you're going to see out of us and Courage for Freedom and a Canadian task force is we're going to place more demands and try to see the intersectionality that Karen's talking about. If I can do the research with the girls I see every day, and I'm not moving away from actually having active case files, because if I do, I don't deserve the right to speak on their behalf. I have to hear what's happening currently to get that to police and to service and care providers, and be able to talk intelligently without yesterday's news to get in front of it, because the criminals are always trying to one up.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to be in front of it. I don't want to be, you know, the dog, the tail wagging the dog. And this hole in the bucket needs to get smaller. And so we have some things that we've thought through as a Canadian task force, working with people coast to coast to coast. And we're not trying to work with people that are already doing work. Like, keep going, keep doing it. We're not trying to duplicate you, work over you. This is and also, it's more hands to do the barn raising. So sorry, Karen drives tractor, so she gets it. So you should see her at the plowing matches.
I've won before.
I know. That's why I wouldn't compete, Karen.
So let's be honest.
Unless I use the horse. I'd use the horse and buggy to do it, but
No,
So-
most of my mares are farmers, so I think they try to take it easy on me. So I just get out there and pretend that I don't know what I'm doing. So that's okay.
And then you kick the butt in the tractor.
You love them into submission is what you do.
So that's what we want to do with the criminals.
Right.
But the other conversation that nobody's having, because it's really difficult, because sometimes it seems like it involves man shaming, is starting to talk about the demographics of who the buyers are.
Right.
And if anybody was to guess from the pictures that we see in the paper with the highly racialized photos of pimps and traffickers and madams and pimp couples, we would never think that one of the reasons this happens is a supply chain commodification, and that over 60% of all those that are buying in human trafficking are Caucasian male, university college educated, low median income, 75 to 150K, or grandparents or entrepreneurs. And we can't shame them into not understanding how this started. We have to go back and look at some of the patriarchy, colonization, misogyny, the issues of porn addiction that drive. And if we start having these conversations, and especially Jason and I have talked about this, that men need to help other men stand up, say, dude, if you're struggling with this, go get help.
Absolutely.
Go get help. That could be
100%.
my daughter. It could be happening, it could start in your neighbor's house, in the security and privacy of them sitting on a toilet with their cell phone, looking at a 12-year-old who's being raped and sold as a trafficking video. Like, we just have to not say it's the 1% snatch and grab and Liam Neeson's driving around in a white van in our community.
Right.
And also to understand that everybody we're talking to, and you guys get this, no matter if they're on page 100 and just learning, or page 250, there's a role for everybody to play. And that's why we created a movement to get people involved so they can educate themselves where they're at in their local communities, but collectively as Canadians, to say, as Canadians, we do not want to see our boys and girls, our children, bought and sold as commodities. That is so Canadian to stand up for that saying. So this hole in the bucket, the whole purpose of everything we're doing for the next 2 years, I need to decrease the hole in the bucket or it's going to kill me. I can't just watch more kids pour through. I can't keep throwing resources. And as Karen said, that onion has all these layers. We can be working on those, but let's make sure that we're shrinking the onion overall. I'd like a little green onion, not a big, huge onion.
Yeah.
And so how do we do prevention? And so talking with the chief of police in town and Mayor Joe and you, and Jason, there's a current case in St. Thomas. So if you want to just, if there's anything you can speak to about this, I can't speak to it because I'm engaged and it's currently before the courts. But what I can say is I've seen in the media how the public is going after a victim that in 2013 was 15 years old. And there's charges of human trafficking and child pornography against somebody in our community that was welcomed into our community with open arms by a business to be a business voice in our community and given access and endorsed by all our high schools as a specialist in this field. We failed this girl as a community. I will take responsibility first citizen. We failed because we didn't vet people coming into our community and setting up shop that have access to our kids, to those that have mental health issues, to those that don't understand their rights with settlement and immigration, any vulnerable sector. So literally, once we're done the summer, I think we'll find a patio that we can COVID appropriately hang out on. And I would just like to challenge Mayor Joe to take this to your council, work with Paul Jenkins in our community as the chamber chair, and Karen as our parliamentarian, to say, we would like to see that we would up our game, that our businesses will voluntarily mandate vulnerable sector screening. So if somebody is on the sex offender registry, that we are not going to hand them the keys to the kids. So sorry.
No,
How ashamed I am about this one.
go ahead. I see Joe because I know it. I'll pitch in after Joe because I saw Joe had his hand up there because I know it. But oh gosh, Kelly, you got it.
Let's go after the sellers and let's put the fear of God into the buyers. You either straighten up and fly right and stop buying the frigging kids, or work, there's an OPP guy that, oh my gosh, he's so amazing. He's Southwest Region. And at En route, he says, you better stop because we're coming for you.
Right. I think that's, it's clearly the message. Look, take a look. I'm not the typical here. I mean, this is, you mentioned about helping victims, and Kelly does that in spades. Between Karen and I, we help Kelly find the funds and the means and the legislation to help victims. But what does an old guy like me do in this scenario? He shouts from the rooftops, this is not right. And he convinces other citizens in his community and the powers that be across the board in his community, let's take these steps. Let's move forward to make this not be part of our community. Or as Kelly said more than once, shrink that hole in the bucket. Let's just get this. We have a large amount of our population that has no idea that this is even occurring in their own community.
Absolutely.
So I don't want one case even in my own community, but boy, when we have it, I want to shout it from the rooftops. Take a point, take a look. It can happen here, it can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
So let's us do the roles that we can do. Kelly drives all over the world. I spend more time on the phone with Kelly. Oh wait, I just went under a bridge. Are you still there? But that's not my role in this, right? My role is as much awareness, Karen's role also, as much awareness and solutions towards. Now, Kelly just sat there and told us a number of solutions that are not complete yet. We can point at Peel and say, what a great idea Safe House is. Wait, the mayor's Binger went on and said, yeah, that's a needed. We have a number of safe solutions in our community to sheltering, whether it's homeless or drug addictions or mental health.
Yeah.
Hey, here's another one that can be added, right? Then, as Kelly also said, let's also take a look from a community point of view, municipally, provincially, and federally. What can we do from a vulnerable person's point of view to not plan for the victim, but plan for the perpetrator? Let's make that perpetrator not have an open menu, an easy route, right? Let's make, and look, can I do the other? Probably not, right? But I can do that as a municipal leader, as a well-known person in my community. I can say, you know what? That's a standard we should live to. We shouldn't have people having access to vulnerable populations that have not had some sort of verification, right? I don't want to say small businesses are bad. I want to say, let's verify that you're not. Right?
No, and we've never gone to the small businesses and educated them. So
absolutely.
That's on me. So talking with somebody like Paul Jenkins, who Karen works with as well, he's open. He's like, how can we make this better? Paul loved our goats, by the way.
Yeah.
I think we need to do that through our business community. And you're right. We've had little inroads into our business community, but let's make that another human trafficking inroad into our business communities.
And give it to Karen as a win to take up federally and challenge all her colleagues that we can do this all across the chambers in Canada.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know something, the one thing I really noticed too is, and we're talking about solutions, and I'm a mom of 3 boys. And to me, one of the most important things is teaching our young men how to respect. I think that we have seen this for years, and I have been fortunate enough to be surrounded by the best men ever. I've got my husband, Mike. I've got my dad. I've got Joe. I've been surrounded by good men. What we need to do is we need every person to understand the value of somebody. And I think a lot of times, like when you're talking about the commodity, a woman is not a commodity. She is not for sale. children are not for sale. And I think it really, when you talk about education, what can we do? I know that who was I speaking to? And I was going to do a men's breakfast. I had this all planned. Then darn COVID came through. But it was, what can we do? So even our young boys are aware of this. And I thought, something, I'm going to start dealing with my son's basketball team. Yeah. Where's the best place to start? Where you have 12 kids that are out there on the court, that are all buddies who hold one another accountable. Where do you get started? You get started with a young group of boys. And that's something that I do feel sorry. And I said this all the time. My son, Christian, poor kid. And I know, Kelly, Christian's a great name. We love our Christians. But my son, Christian, that poor kid, there is not a girl that he's brought to this house that I have said, you let me know if there's ever a problem here, because this mama, she won't go for it. and I think those ideas too. And we need to also let our women know that they're empowered, empower them with that self-confidence, empower them to know that men can't do this to them. And a lot of times it's that wormhole, and Kelly knows all about it. It's that little crack in that person. They get wormed hole, and all of a sudden they become a possession or a commodity of a pimp. So there's so much work that we can do with our children as well. And those are just thoughts I have as well.
And when you have young boys that start holding other young boys in check, and it's not just the moms, my son's a firefighter and he's talking to people all the time.
Yeah.
But it's when Joe is talking somewhere and somebody says a really bad joke about something that just wouldn't be funny if a woman and a woman victim was in the presence, and Joe gently just says, hey, things have changed. I went to a men's meeting too, Karen.
Yeah.
They invite me in with 350 men. And when I start talking, they all do this. They're all looking at the free things I gave them for the meeting. No eye contact. Yeah. And I say, oh, for the love of God, if you went to Hooters or you bought porn, can you just get your heads up, forgive yourself, and know that you need to stop that. Today's different because you're fueling the economy to put the little girls that I sit with. Well, and they're like, phew, okay, she's not nailing us to a cross. Like, different.
And I also don't think some of these men would know how those girls ended there. They wouldn't have a clue that, they wouldn't have a clue why that girl chose to be dancing or chose to be doing this.
Done, they know.
Oh, absolutely. But it's interesting when I look at these things, I just think they probably have no idea what put that girl in that position. And that's when we realize we got so much work to do. And I think that's the philosophy. If they understand, these are victimized young women.
And they're not just, and when we're able to say, okay, they're not just girls from the other side of the tracks. They're not just girls that are from these communities. They're not just drug addicted, slutty girls that are trolling for money. And they're not all gang girls. Some of them might be. But you know what? Who cares? They're children.
Who cares? Yeah. One thing that I find really interesting, and I know I won't get political here and partisan. I'll just talk about some of the different philosophies. But one of the greatest challenges that we have is the definition of sex work. What is that? Is sex work this? And I have a call out. Dr. Hetty Fry lives in Vancouver Center, and her and I will be meeting throughout the summer just on different things, because we come from very different places. And for me, it's not that I have to challenge her. I want to understand why this is okay. Like, why do you think? And when we hear, there are about 5% of women who are in who are in the sex work. Well, that means that there's 95% of women that are not by choice. That is where I really want to focus on. I recognize that there's two different groups. I get that. I don't know that one group very well, but I can tell you the 95% of those victims of sexual trafficking and exploitation, I will fight tooth and nail for them.
Well, and I have friends that still are in sex work. And I'm not going to fight a woman over her choices to voice her opinion as an adult. But I do know that there's a very blurred line between that woman voicing this and how it affects the next generation. So are we going to be teaching this at a college and university now as a business course? And at what level is somebody's brain fully formed to mitigate risk and understand that there is an additional demand if you call this a job? It's just like sending somebody into an oil field and telling them you're slinging the chain around the drill and there's no additional stress on you or things that could happen to you in that job. We have to understand that if they're going to call it a job, if that's what they're going to say, that some of the inherent risks are self-imposed. And we also have to understand that if we didn't continue to subscribe to a system that's wrought with patriarchy, misogyny, and colonialism, it wouldn't even be on the table as a choice.
Mhm.
So I'm very careful because my brain is always saying, I'm not telling adult women what to do, but can you please tell me at 11:59 p.m. at 18 and 12:01 a.m. at 19 to a kid that's already experienced trauma and their trauma brain is probably 13, why it's okay to choose this as a career path. I'm not criticizing, and very often I'm targeted as being a critic. I want, like you, Karen, I want to know, and I want to stand for women and I want to stand for girls, but my duty is we are failing at protecting children.
Absolutely.
I've just drawn the line here. And so
Yeah.
I'm very careful, even with the pro-sex positive movement. I'm making sure that anybody that claims they're involved in this, I want to read what they think that includes, because there's some chapters of that movement that believe that at any age from birth, that if it feels good and it is stimulating,
Oh,
I'm sorry, this is
I
the
know.
world I live in, Karen.
I've read some of these books. Trust me, it's awful.
So that if a little girl's body at 5 is being stimulated by a criminal that's creeped her and now abusing and violently abusing her sexually, and if her body is responding because it has nerve endings that were created to respond to pleasure as she grows up and learns about it, or a little boy learns about it. And I can tell you that the movement is trying to debug our language thinking, just soften our thinking because it sounds good. Sex
Yeah.
positive. Okay, I want to know what your definition is. Does that mean if it feels good to a child, that an adult has the right to access the child and it's the child's right to say yes to sex from birth? Because 0.5% of our population that's pedosexual is trying to up the ante by including themselves in a conversation that pushes all of us outside of the capacity
Yeah.
to protect our children. So I just say, buyer beware. Before you click and like and link, can you read the fine print and ask intelligent questions? Especially just frame your brain and think, if I was 12, would this be good for me? My daughter, my grandkids, my neighbor kid I see out playing with chalk, is this good for her? Is this good for the little boys? I have worked with children's services, and I've worked with big brothers and big sisters and the Ys. And one of the things we found is the level of shame in kids that were sexually violated because their body was reacting. So little boys that were being perpetrated, that if they were stiff, they thought that it's their fault, that it's their reaction. And it really takes so much counseling and care for them to understand you did nothing wrong. Your body was designed to react to this, but you were supposed to have some more time for your brain to catch up, to learn how to mitigate risk and keep yourself safe. And that's the other thing. Who are we thinking we're going to throw all this crap into a school, and somebody that can't even make their friggin' bed or learn to budget their allowance is going to keep themselves safe? Parents, wake up. It's your job.
That's right.
Yeah, and you talk about that trauma, you talk about the trauma brain, and that is something that is so real. You know, from the time the trauma happens, whether it's an addict, whether it is a child, that time, what have they experienced since then? It has been all fogged by that experience,
Yep.
right? So when you talk about that 13-year-old brain and a 22-year-old body, it's very, very there. It very happens. So that's why it's important that we do have that separation of resources to help people on violence against women versus sexual exploitation. There's some horrific things that happen, but there's a very specialized need for those young children.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just kind of really rained on the podcast parade with that information. But the good news is, now that we've done so much work, so many community partners, so many people across sectors, people, you know, who pioneered this work, whose shoulders I get to stand on and continue to build legacy while I educate young people to use their voices beneficially. We have to not get tired. Because like I said before, how tired are the parents and families to even let anybody else in the community know it's happened? There is such a gag order on this. I know, Mayor Joe, with the case that's happening in your city, there are multiple victims that probably will never have the capacity to come forward because of the level of shame, stigma, and the mental health demands that somebody goes through. They, you know, victim services does everything they can, but they have to help all victims, not just human trafficking victims. The Crown Attorney has to decide if the charges are going to be laid, because there's only a 2% conviction rate on this. And one of the reasons is the egregious nature of what a victim goes through to even be available for 18 months for a trial. It's horrific, because we're not with them 24 hours a day. And that's what we should be offering them until they're healed enough to manage their 24-hour day.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
and Kelly, what you've said is absolutely true. And how many won't come forward, don't even come forward at all? We don't know to help them because they haven't come forward. Later in life, hopefully we get the chance, right? But it is look, I don't want to give anybody the thought that we're not moving forward, because truly the work that Kelly's doing and the work that the legislatures are doing is working.
Yeah.
There's a saying in St. Thomas, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And, you know, Joy, I have not ever eaten an elephant, just so you know. But we want to, we've covered about 5 different edges of human trafficking today, including the legalization of sex work, right? But these are all problems circling a very major problem. Let's continue to work on the human trafficking knowledge side, the human trafficking prevention side. And when the little satellites pop up of other things that are irritating, we can also, we'll be brave enough to also address those. Communities will work better if they have the knowledge, if they admit what is happening, and if they have a plan for how to address it. Kelly's already addressed 2 or 3 of those in the podcast today, about whether it's safe homes, knowledge through city councils, knowing what's happening, teaching other people in the community that we should do vulnerable reference checks on anybody who is dealing with a vulnerable population in any way. And a lot of that is happening, but can we do better? Yes, right? And then all our police forces know the symptoms and how to address it properly. Mm-hmm. I think Kelly's also done some great work with the courts. We touched on it just a minute ago, how not everybody will come forward. It isn't worth the pain. I'll just use that word. It isn't worth the pain. Yes. But we can't fix the overall problem.
Mayor Joe, especially when the government lowered the time for this. So
you might not want to talk about that bill with me, because this bill is what they did in the last parliament to reduce it for criminals. Oh my God.
5 to 2.
Right.
So when you go through a trial that's 18 months, and if somebody's decided not to take bail and sit in jail, they might get time served and they're back out in the community.
Yeah.
Same day
I'm not suggesting that a longer, I'm not suggesting that a longer sentence is the reason someone won't commit a crime in this case. But a longer sentence is a longer time they can't commit that crime with anyone else. And that's, as a parliamentarian, as a legislator in the past, what are you trying to be punitive? No, I'm trying to protect innocent victims. That's why we put longer sentences in place, or even some mandatory sentences in place. It tears me up when subsequent governments go about loosening some of those rules, because they were done. They go. And I know, Karen, you're living with it, but
Karen, where's the mask I have with the zipper?
Exactly.
But it just look, they weren't done frivolously. They weren't done as punishment. That's never the case in justice legislation, in my mind. That was never the thing that got started. Where, severe kind of catch and release situation, even with petty crime right now. Yeah. We can't put someone who just broke into my mom's house to steal her TV in jail. He gets to go home to watch my mom's TV in his house. The same thing happens. Indeed, like, look, if 2 years later you're back on the street with a name change, this is not going to work. So Kelly,
or if nobody ran your sex offender registry and handed you the keys to the kids,
right?
So that's, what's really funny. I admire both of you for something specific. And Joe, you were you not chair of the Integrity Commission when you were on the Hill? Or
well, it was under my jurisdiction. I chaired Procedure and House Affairs for 7 years. Right? So yes.
I know from those that I've worked with subsequent to you retiring that spent time in Parliament with you from all sides of the floor, how much you were respected, that when an issue was important, you would lead with a political will. And I've watched Karen do that, both as the shadow cabinet minister and now in her position now, where she just wants to get the facts and she wants to find out what needs to be done to work together towards a solution. And I know that's really hard, being a politician, but I just want to encourage you both to continue in that, because you've really changed a lot of things that have been beneficial to those that I work with and those that I champion for. So I want to say thanks for that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying so. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but sometimes it's straightforward.
We need all your friends. When there's a motion on the floor and the vote needs to go, we need to drop the colors of our government and pick up the flag and say what is best for us all around as Canadians.
Yeah.
And Kelly, you saw that this just a few months ago in the House of Commons, where we actually passed the Human Traffic Recognition Day for February. That was something that, yes, we changed the whole political plan, or what the parliamentary schedule for that day. Yes, there was a little bit of inner fighting on how we were going to get there. But I will tell you, it was because I'm a member of the All Parliamentary Committee to End Human Trafficking and Human Slavery. And every single member on that committee, Liberals, Conservatives, Bloc, Senators, all of us were together, and that's what we wanted. So when we have a unanimous decision by an all-party parliamentary committee, including John McKay, who has been a long-time person in the House of Commons, who are saying, we're going to do this, we decided to break into debate, have a 3-hour debate. At the end of the day, it was recognized. And I know that maybe the way we did it was political, but at the end of the day, I know that people found out more about human trafficking. I know that our little twist in that House of Commons that day brought a really, really important topic up. And then people thought, what are these darn conservatives doing now? Well, it wasn't about politics. It was about how we were bringing this up. And we had the support of the members of the all-party committee to say, stir the crap today, because this is what we need. And it brought more, it highlighted the issue exactly where we need to go.
You've taught me, you and Joe started it. I wasn't a quick study. Don't post that out, Jason. But with Karen, I've continued to follow. I actually watch parliamentary television. Yeah.
Oh,
Your husband thinks I'm a bit of a nerd.
so does my husband. Watch it.
So what I've learned is more about the process of Parliament that's really helped me to work in my chairperson's roles with women's organizations that write resolutions to parliamentarians to say, well, you're writing something and you're out of season. They're not going to have somebody that can come up and motion this. There's a draw at the beginning of the year, how many times people can speak, and there's a series of things that can happen, like an election being called, that can halt all of the work. I'm not talking anymore about that. That I've learned so much about this to learn how to participate with parliamentarians that want to work apolitically, to hand them the research and a brief and a resolution that's well written, well researched, that everybody can become allies, motion and move. And that's, I saw that happen February 22nd, because people don't understand there's a pro and con mic happening. Every time it's spoken to on one side. And so sometimes when you work with allies, even from a different party that really want to see something positive happen, you want their con mic on to speak to the issue so you can give Canadians more information so they understand. And that rallying together of parliamentarians is really what we're going to need. Because I'm telling you now, in 2022, we're coming federally and in every province with resolutions from the National Women's Jewish Congress, the Canadian Federation of University Women, BPW, Council of Women, the Council of Muslim Women, Zonta, Women's Institute, just all the acronyms I have from everybody working together on Project En Route. We are going to align our resolution writing together, all of us. And we're going to ask for one thing at a time, and we're going to hand Parliament a win that Canadians want. And it's going to be around the conduct to prevent people from buying our kids. So get ready. July 30th is the World Day to End Trafficking in Persons. Now, we had planned to be in 4,600 Tim Hortons on screens. COVID had a different plan. They're now owned by a Brazilian national company. And because of what happened, they're not putting ads on their screens from community. Well, it saved me $150,000 in advertising nationally, and also made us go viral and start having conversations with every province. So for the last year, we have had over 1,700 meetings with organizations and sectors broadly for the Canadian Task Force. My Indigenous lead lives in Nunavut, and people are in Halifax, and there's people in BC. Your friend Trisha has jumped in and deciding how she's going to take a picture with a sign. And everybody in the prairies, and we're all working together on this. And where we're going to land is July 30th. We don't know what COVID's going to do, but we know what we're going to do. And Karen, you've already done this.
Well, Kelly, I just wanted to yes, I have. But before you get started, I just wanted to talk about the fact that I love that you reached out and said, how do I get a hold of Trisha? And Trish, just this girl. Trish is now I met her. She made me bawl. We had a big hug. And I love her to pieces, and I would do anything for that young woman in the world. And she shared, it's those stories of a victim, and just seeing all she wants to do is help other victims. And I adore her for it. And I will do whatever I can do to support her. So
she's a survivor, sister, ally. And when we unify our voices, look out, Canada, because you're not going to be able to ignore us.
That's perfect.
We're holding the sign. We're doing Project Maple Leaf. It's a movement. It's just about people. Courage for Freedom doesn't own it. It belongs to survivors, because a 16-year-old asked us to start this. And the statement is, I want to eradicate the buying and selling of girls and boys children in Canada, challenge others past the sign. So between now and July 30th, we're just blowing up socials. But then we figured, what else could we do to stir the pot? Well,
Not Kelly Franklin.
so we're going to be at every parliament in Canada with at least one ambassador and one media channel supporting us. We're going to be making this declaration with a statement about what we are demanding from Canadians. And it's a unified statement. It's going to start on the East Coast. It's going all the way across to the West Coast and all the way up into the territories. And we will be in Ottawa as well with my business professional woman president. She'll be standing there.
Awesome.
And we'll have the same number of signs as there are parliamentarians in the building in September again. And we're going to leave the signs for the parliamentarians. So we're going to do a Canadian wave during COVID.
Well, if you look at my office at 750 Talbot Street, that is the window. That is the sign that's in my window. So.
And now.
Also one at the mayor's office window at City Hall.
Jason's got a sign up behind him. Jason, what do you think of this trifecta in this Elgin-Middlesex-London St. Thomas community? We haven't given you any airtime, and you're the airwaves guy.
Oh, well, I've just been sitting here thinking about all of this and taking it all in, and it's really, man, this is something that we talk about a lot in school, and hoping and trying to like figure out, how do we get like a grassroots movement going on that can affect like every level of government and society as well. This is it. This is a perfect example of something that is owned by the people who are most affected by it and has political, power to actually make a change here. And a lot of, there's a lot of work to be done, and we've already been talking about a lot of the things that we have seen change, and I think it's just fantastic. And it's great to see something like this actually happen, and especially when we get so much bad news all of the time. It's just fantastic to see something actually going in the right way.
Well, Jason, what I can say is we've got, I don't know if you want to put this live, but we've got the JJK, which is the Joe, Jeff, Karen. It's a lot different when you have community leaders who want to work with the community. And I think the friendships that we have as elected officials with the members of our communities, we own it, right? We own it. We're part of it. And that's what we do. So we're the JJK. And and I will never say that out there, but because it sounds so wrong, but we're Joe, Jeff, and Karen, and we'll do whatever this community needs. So that's the way I look at it.
Including making each other cry.
Yeah. I see it as a fantastic relay team with the Olympics perhaps coming up.
We'll see you there.
It's what time of, where are we in the race and who gets the baton next? Right. Because we each have an area we can cover, right? And I don't pretend to be able to do what Jeff can do provincially or what Karen can do federally. But when it's my turn and it's about municipal or local government, hand me the baton. It's my turn for a little while. Well, Jeff, get your hand out. We're going back to the province, right? And Kelly's there to run the final leg with the victims, and it really is. I don't want to oversimplify this, but it truly is that simple. If we could have everywhere across Canada where all levels of government were working together on any project, more improvement would be seen. It's the type of people in the community spirit that we have, and it really works. But as I said, that first visit to meet Kelly for the first time, it was, okay, I don't know what this is about. And in 15 minutes, I was sold for a lifetime. I want out. No, I'm just kidding. I don't.
You had a young girl tour you around the farm. There was somebody that was 13 years old.
Was it not Mandy?
That's my daughter now.
Yeah,
Mandy.
at the time, and Mandy became a good friend and watched her grow up from there. But it isn't, well, anyway, it just gets in you, it becomes permanent. Yeah, it becomes permanent. Yeah.
I'm feeling very old now that we're talking about Mandy at 13. I'm going to visit her because she's graduating with her second degree from university.
Yeah.
Celebrating 3 years of marriage and having her second baby in July. So,
oh my gosh.
if you guys really,
wait, I was only 21 at the time. How did this? No, I'm just kidding.
well, do you know what she remembers, Joe? He was really indignant with media that kept requesting you to lead the horse and lap around because at the time you were getting ready or had just had knee surgery or something.
Oh, yeah, no, I had just had knee surgery and was not walking all that well.
And
right?
that media person kept saying, just do one more lap. We need one more picture. And Mandy, he's a pistol. She just said,
you do learn.
Have to go around again.
You do learn, and Karen knows this too. Sometimes giving that picture of you leading the horse to that reporter gets you 5 more stories somewhere down the road because somebody else was rude to them and didn't do it, right?
Well, and Karen helped out too. She knew how much healing was happening with girls that we could get in front of horses that understand trauma work. Horses understand it better than the people that work with them. And I remember Karen calling us up when Andrew Shearer was coming to town and ensuring that he noticed what we were doing.
Yeah.
And so you guys are always pitching for the community for our wellness while you're working at multiple levels. You guys have said it. I said it in my email to all 3 of you. You're my trifecta. I know that no matter who else gets brought into the mix, you won't put them in a silo if there's benefit for the community. And that's why Jason has probably been the most interesting podcast that you saw, and probably unconventional. But I just personally say, I just personally make a commitment to my community and my friends that this is my life's work. I'm branded because of my own story with our name, and you gave me the space to develop, to be who we are for the life's work that I believe that we're going to see the hole in the bucket get smaller with your help.
That's awesome.
So much gratitude. And I know there's lots of other people doing this work that you work with as well. But when you support me personally and the over 350 girls, I'm looking here because I have 31 on my whiteboard right now. They're at all different levels. They're in all 24 are from this province and the rest are from other provinces. And so, yeah, if I'm under a bridge and I zone out on the call, I'll call back.
If I can just jump in, I spent a very good portion of my life and Kelly's life, and George too. Don't want to forget that side of it.
He's packing the car because in an hour we're going to help.
That's George's life: packing and unpacking the car and feeding animals. But more than once, and Kelly will say it was 1,000,000 times. I said, Kelly, pick just 10 things to work on.
Yeah.
Kelly, just pick 10 things to work on out of the 500 you're trying to do. I could never convince her, and the world's a better place because I couldn't convince her, because Kelly has the moment of that day. That's the project. It is the most important thing. It's that, right? And I could never get her to. I know she heard me from time to time because she would repeat the words back. She never did it, but she would repeat the words back, so I know she heard. The world's a better place because you did all those things.
It's because this amazing man that is our city mayor actually called me up and said, ask me, after he had announced he wasn't going to be in federal parliament. I'm saying, ask you what, Joe? Ask you what? And for my lifetime, I wanted Joe to chair the board to teach me some things about business and strategies. but I never had the chops to ask him, and he knew he could help.
You would think she would have listened
To
more.
Wendy's, and I think we blew the napkin budget in an hour.
Yeah.
And we just dreamed about what we could do working together. And my favorite thing that I learned from Joe and the deputy police chief from Elmer and everybody else that jumped on and worked with us is that people can come and go off the board for seasons. It's okay. It's not about having a board forever, amen. It's about what the season is and what we can learn. And the funniest thing that Joe taught me is never go to a meeting that could have been an email.
Joe, you forgot to tell me that.
Well, we all learn these things in different time. I'm now saying never hold a Zoom that could have been an email. And many times you have to have the face-to-face conversation. I get it, even if it's not about anything important. But so much of we only have so many hours in our lives, right, Kelly? We're taking the car for you to head somewhere else. So wherever you can save time today, it's more time you can do something else. I mean, it just is.
Every one of us, even Jason, he's a reservist, so he's got to get off call. He had to drive quick to get back to Ottawa to get on a podcast today because he's doing stuff.
Yeah, this was the last chance I had to see my family before it all starts for the summer. So.
Well, and I wanted to say thank you, Jason, for not running. I think I scared the bejesus out of him at Fanshawe, and he's like, "Ooh." But then when he went post-secondary and university after graduating college, we just intersect. I never let go of his email, and I think we just intersected again, and I just felt like it's time. And I've learned to trust him with this because he's very honest. If I ask him a question, so what is happening with college and university? What are the conversations? And some of the things he said is, the professors really dictate who gets to come in and present, and sometimes things are one-sided. And he gives me perspective to think of it like a young adult, which is really, really important. Mm-hmm. But I'm really grateful for him. And the poor guy has to do all the legwork, stick his sign up, and be available whenever we need him. And I think, like this week, you were interviewing the work that Courage for Freedom's been doing with the vice president?
The vice president of the
Association of Probation and Parole.
With
awesome.
Gareth Williams, yeah.
And
that was a wonderful call.
And so Gareth Williams, he's a staff with Solgen, asked permission to talk about this. And now we're working towards ensuring that every probation and parole officer has specific training for this. So Karen, we're moving it. We're trying.
Good.
And Joe, we're stuck on one issue.
Yeah, okay.
This is it.
It just has 43 different things this second to work on.
Yeah.
It's just one issue, yeah.
Just one for the mayor, one for the MP, one for the MPP, and Jason has to help me figure out who they go to.
Right. Well, Kelly, that, I'll speak on behalf of Karen and Jeff, who wasn't able to be with us today. We're there for you. Simply ask.
Yeah.
I hope to be here a long time.
Yeah, well, I may regret saying that, but I've said it to you 100 times, so it's okay.
Joe,
anytime, any place.
I would say I expect about 40 years left in this body, so you've got me for about another 40.
Woohoo! Joe was the one in the middle of a meeting, was so frustrated with us and the load I was carrying, actually put forward a motion as the president of the board of directors that Kelly was not allowed to die, and it was unanimously carried. And I actually framed those minutes, Joe.
We would have got all that work, and none of us could do it singularly, that's for certain. So
however else we can serve community, it's our home community first, and the rest of the province, the rest of Canada, and the rest of the world after. And Karen, I'd really love to see us do something at the UN next year and knock it out of the park.
No problem. I know that UN has been sometimes a little bit of a difficulty. I know that there are some very, very important things, but we also have to look at, it's interesting because the value systems around this world and the people that go and represent Canadian or women in this world. Sometimes I kind of question how they got there. We are on such different planets sometimes.
You just stilled my thoughts. I love it.
Yeah. So absolutely.
Well, and one of the ways to bridge that gap in understanding is to watch this podcast and to get informed about the issue. And a lot of the things that we're doing here today are going to change those hearts and minds down the road in the future.
So every single person that watches Jason can get a sign from us, take a picture of themselves, message it out, and July 30th repost, because the bigger noise we make, the more power we give to our parliamentarians to push governmental will and watch the legislation wheels move a little faster than King can pull the buggy.
That would be awesome.
Absolutely. And that's definitely going to be something that's something that I talk to about with every single person that I meet is talking about this podcast, talking about the ways that you can get involved, and people are very responsive to that, and they want to get involved and they want to be engaged. And I'm just so glad that we have this opportunity right now to do that. I think
But Jason, can you make sure you tell people they don't have to start something new?
Absolutely not. No,
if
just simply
something's
saying
already happening, go do the heavy lifting. You might be somebody's succession plan. We all need people to hand things over to. I'm not getting younger. Let us make some mistakes. You jump in.
Somebody write that down, please, because I don't believe a word of it. So I wanted in. Can I get a copy of the film, please? Because I think Kelly just said I can pass somebody. I can pass it on to. Yeah.
I think it'll be more than one person.
I'll volunteer to be the one that kisses babies and shakes hands, Joe. Thank you.
Well,
thank you, Jason.
More than
Thank you,
welcome.
Kelly.
Thank you,
Like to
Kelly.
thank
Thank
you
you,
to everyone.
Jason.
Thank you for
Wonderful to
being
meet you.
Karen,
So
we
absolutely.
only have about 18 things to talk about this week. So yeah, at some point.
I know there's so much. Yeah, absolutely. I'm back in the car tomorrow morning because I'm leaving in the morning, going out to Ottawa. 3 more days there.
Well, I'd love to have half an hour about procedural House Affairs even, but it's just so far down my list too. So it's
Procedures in House Affairs. If you want, well, you know all about it.
yeah, I lived it. Yeah.
101 days of a filibuster, 73 hours,
Yeah.
no witnesses for pieces of legislation.
Yeah.
I
want to say it has to do with the chair. No, it's not.
Oh, no.
Life of a parliamentarian. Oh, dear.
The inside baseball part of being a parliamentarian, right? Everybody thinks it's just all right.
I just think these guys are funny together because Joe is chirping Karen about what's going on that she has to endure as a parliamentarian. And Karen goes back and see the egregious things that get put on Joe as a mayor during COVID. I think you guys are 2 peas in a pod.
We haven't had time though to sit down and just chat as Karen and Joe.
Oh, it's been quick phone calls all through COVID. It's just been, can I have 5 minutes of your time? Jeff, can I have 5 minutes of your time? And here's the 3 issues. And please listen for a second. There's just 3 issues. Write these down. Right. And then I got to be somewhere else, or Karen's got to be somewhere else, or Jeff's got to be somewhere else. But I think Karen alluded to it earlier on. I don't know if there's anywhere else in Canada where this works this well.
No, there isn't.
Right? And it comes from a background of working well, even when it wasn't the 3 of us all, it was opposition MPPs. And we just said, we're not going to let politics or team uniforms get in the way of getting things done for our community. Well, that's a pretty simplistic approach, folks. It's not hard. Reach out, right? And have those conversations. Hey, Karen, do you and I disagree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do.
Isn't that why you ordered the bobblehead?
Yes. Where's my bobblehead? No.
People know that Karen and Joe disagree, and I think that's what makes it better because they know that we actually think about what we're talking about. We actually think about it. We actually care. So we don't have to. It's great. It's great. Like I learned so much from Joe and vice versa. That's the way it's supposed to be. And I'm really fortunate. But I do know that there are, when you talk about not team colors, Joe, I know, yes, I'm on leadership now. It's probably so that I don't call 1064s and create parliamentary committees when the leadership doesn't want it, and I think they're wrong.
Yeah.
Were you the one that when you first went to the House, you had a statement about somebody touching somebody's butt?
Oh, I got the worst. Okay, so last month it was about P-gate. I call it P-gate because of peeing in the cup when the parliamentarian peed in the cup. I had to do the point of privilege on that. I've had to talk about pole dancing. I've had if it's a bad subject, they throw Karen at it.
Yeah, how come I never got any of that fun? Right?
Jesus. I know if it's going to be bad and they need somebody to talk about it, they're going to throw Karen at the plate. And I'm like, oh, you guys, you bastards. So
and then her staff has to go, Karen, breathe and talk slower so everybody knows what you're saying. Because Karen gets angry about an issue, it's coming out. And that's what I love.
Yeah.
My husband says we're a little bit alike that way, that when we get amped, we start going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's another good thing about Zoom is later on I could play it slower and understand what someone said. Right?
Joe's almost ready for retirement.
Well, guys, I know this has been a great show, and I'm really excited about it. I just want to let you know I have to actually get ready because we have 8 foster chickens coming today. So we've got 8 foster chickens.
There's a joke there. But, something foul, but I can't.
Are you back for the summer now?
I'll be back. No, I'll be back on Thursday for the summer.
Okay. And
but then
July 30th, will you be in Elgin?
I will put it in there. I can't promise because I don't actually.
Are you in Elgin while we're in Ottawa?
I don't know yet. I don't.
If you're in Ottawa, I will
let you know.
Out. Okay, you just tell us.
I will know where I am when. I don't know where I am when Bill and Scott tell me where I am.
Bill Blair.
Yeah. What do you need from Bill?
Well, what happened is public safety didn't create anything with their media circles around July 30th. And the Canadian Centre was trying to do something as well, Julia Drydeck. And the leak on the Canadian stats went out. So that was supposed to be their announcement for July 30th for World Day. So we actually bridged in with all their comms people to say, just adopt what we're doing and let Bill own it. I don't care. Shirley Colletier, the RCMP chick, she's a good friend. But
send anything that you need to go directly to him. I work very closely with him. Oh, sorry.
He's really good. When you talk to him about us, just tell him thank you.
No problem. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We already have your video. We're going to re-reel it July 30th, Karen.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Because I was going to say, I think I did that a few months ago.
And then we'll come and drop off your swag and wine.
Sorry, I just have to.
No, go.
Okay.
Well, that's okay. We can end it now. Okay. Everything has been fantastic.
So. They just keep on calling.
Cut off your recording and then we can say the real stuff.
Okay. I will go. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for having me.
Have a good chicken day.